All right, so here we go with our video for section 3 of chapter 27. In this one, we're going to be talking about India seeking self-rule. So we discussed back in chapter 25 how by the mid-1800s, India was under direct rule of the British Empire, and how very little of Britain's rule actually benefited India. You know, they exploited India for its natural resources in order to build the wealth of the British Empire. And the majority of Indians were dissatisfied with Britain for obvious reasons. Public protests were increasing throughout the country. And one such protest became a turning point in India's movement for independence. And that's called the Amritsar Massacre. Now, Amritsar is a city in northern India, kind of in northwestern India. It's a sacred place for the Sikh community. You remember, Sikhs are a different religion from Hindus and Muslims. And prior to the massacre, public meetings were banned by the British. The British said, you guys are causing too many problems when you get together in these large groups, so no more large meetings, and it was meant to dissuade large protests. On April 13th, 1919, a large crowd gathered for a peaceful protest. Now, whether they knew about the banning or not really is irrelevant by the end of it, because even though it was peaceful, it violated the British order. And so this British commander, General Reginald Dyer, he ordered troops into the square. Now, the square itself was a relatively large area. Okay, this is a picture taken after the massacre, but it was an enclosed-in area. You know, it was meant for large meetings and, you know, also for large kind of worship activities for different religions and so forth. But it was enclosed. There were only a couple of ways in and out, okay? It was walled in completely as a square. And so this guy Dyer, he ordered troops into the square where the meeting took place, and he ordered them to open fire without any warning. He ordered them to fire into the heart of the crowd. And this resulted in a tremendous amount of casualties. 400 were killed and over 1,000 were wounded. And the Amritsar Massacre, as it became known, really was a major turning point in the Indian independence movement. Prior to it, a lot of Indians wanted better treatment, but did not necessarily want independence. All right, they felt they were part of the British Empire. They just wanted to be treated more like the white European members of the British Empire. Afterwards, though, the massacre convinced many Indians that they would never be treated equally as the British. Okay, that ship has sailed, and therefore they call for full independence. Now, even before the massacre happened, the Indian independence movement was defined by the leadership of one man, and that is Mohandas K. Gandhi. Now, the popular image of Gandhi that you see here is a bald man in traditional Hindu robes, but that's not how he started out. He was a British educated lawyer. Here's a picture of Gandhi as a young man. Now, obviously, the hair, that's just age. That goes with it. But the three-piece suit, all right, that was him trying to be the ideal that a lot of middle and upper-class Indians strove for. They viewed themselves as being British gentlemen. They didn't try necessarily to be separate. It was common for middle-class Indians, of which Gandhi was a member of, for them, and also of the upper class, obviously, to send their sons to be educated at British schools and to try and become more British. So he actually received his law degree in England. Now, it was he eventually settled and to start his law practice in South Africa, and it was here he encountered the discriminatory laws that we discussed in the previous section. In South Africa, Gandhi began campaigning against these laws, and when he returned to India, he became leader of the Indian National Congress Party. The Indian National Congress Party had pushed for self-rule since the late 1800s. It's a little tough to make out the bottom. You can see the first Indian National Congress, 1885. And it was a mixture of Hindus and Muslims and even Sikhs as well. But getting back with Gandhi here, Gandhi is best known for his strict adherence to a policy of non-violence. He completely rejected the use of violence to gain independence from the British. Now, this was rooted in an ancient Hindu belief known as ahimsa. Ahimsa literally means non-violence. It's a reverence for all life. Now, this did not mean that they had to be totally passive, though, meaning just sit back and do nothing. He said we still have to be active in resisting British rule. He encouraged the practice of civil disobedience. This is the refusal to obey unjust laws. He believed that through civil disobedience and nonviolent means, he could show the world how imperialism was morally wrong, and he would gain more supporters for the cause. Now, civil disobedience can take form in a number of different ways. It can just be kind of public gatherings and so forth. But another example of Gandhi's nonviolent protests are the widespread boycotts of British goods that he organized. A boycott is a refusal to buy or use something. Now, he called on Indians to boycott anything made by the British, especially British-made cloths and textiles made with Indian cotton. To show that he would practice what he preached, he stopped wearing Western-style dress, so that's why he stopped dressing like this and started dressing like this. And he only wore simple robes that he himself spun by hand, all right, what he referred to as homespun. Now, these boycotts got the attention of the British authorities, but Gandhi needed a bigger demonstration. So he put together his most famous demonstration of nonviolent resistance, the Salt March. Salt was a valuable commodity in warm climates like India. It was meant for preserving food. It was also meant to replenish salt supplies when you sweat a lot. But the production of salt was monopolized by the British. Indians were not allowed to produce their own. Gandhi saw this monopoly as a symbol of British oppression. So on March 12, 1930, he left his village with 78 followers and marched 240 miles to the Indian Ocean. As they passed through villages, they gained more followers until they eventually numbered in the thousands. When he reached the sea, he went into the water and picked up lumps of salt from his hand, you can do that in the ocean, and kind of held it up to the crowd, signifying that India would no longer let the British control their resources. It seemed like a relatively simple thing, but Gandhi encouraging Indians to make their own salt was technically against the law, and he was arrested and jailed because of it. So soon after, other Indians began making their own salt, thereby breaking British law, and were also imprisoned. The British police also beat and assaulted peaceful protesters at salt factories. This resulted, here you see a picture of Gandhi in jail, and this resulted in international outcry against the British policies in India. Gandhi's tactics of nonviolence, they had succeeded in making the British appear the evil oppressors, and it weakened their control in India. Even though independence for India wouldn't be achieved until after World War II, Gandhi's Salt March guaranteed it was only a matter of time before it happened. All right, we'll talk more about Gandhi and kind of the culmination of the independence movement in India in a later chapter, but that'll end it for now. And in the next section, we're going to be talking about some nationalist movements and some big changes in China.